Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all here this morning, and welcome to the Pinellas Home Energy Symposium. Does everybody hear me fairly well? Okay, good. I'm Mary Campbell, the Extension Director. We're very excited about this workshop today. I get the pleasure of introducing in a moment our key speaker, but we're really glad you could be here today. We have a great lineup of experts on energy issues. It's a very important topic, and we're very pleased to present this workshop. I hope you're going to take advantage of all the resources we have here at UF-IFAS Extension. If you haven't been to programs before, we have a lot of different programs, and we are the doorway to the University of Florida. Go Gators, right? Let me introduce the staff that were instrumental in putting this workshop together. First, I'd like to introduce Ramona Madison Hector. Ramona is faculty with the University of Florida, and she does all of our sustainability topics like energy conservation. And then I'd like to introduce Greg Plantamura. Greg is our energy educator, and I think Greg has personally handed out over 70,000 CFLs over the last few years. I think that's close to the number. He does all of our energy workshops all over Pinellas County. We're very thankful to have him as our energy educator, and now he's working with LEDs and other energy workshops. So if you know of groups that would like an energy workshop, Greg does a lot of those. Thanks to our volunteers that are here today also that are helping us with registration. We have a lot of great volunteers. So let me go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker. We're gonna get going here on time. We have a lot to cover this morning, but it's really a pleasure to have Dr. Jennifer Languell here with us again. This is our second symposium. She spoke at our first symposium a couple years ago. But Jennifer is the founder and president of Trifecta Construction Solutions. She remains an outspoken advocate and consultant for a wide range of industries that are looking at sustainable business practices. In 2011, she received the National Association of Home Builders Green Advocate of the Year Award, and this is actually the second time she won the award, and I think the only person that has won that award twice. Her work has included the creation of award-winning single-family homes, multifamily residential, commercial projects, sustainable land developments. She's a consultant to governments and municipalities in this changing time of developing more sustainable projects and management practices. So Dr. Languell and Trifecta have won many awards for many organizations such as the Urban Land Institute, National Association of Home Builders, Center for Sustainable Florida, Green Building Coalition, and she's also an award-winning author and was selected as a technical advisor and star for the Discovery Channel's environmental series Discovery Project Earth. So we're very happy to have her. She's one of the top consultants in this country for builders and developers and developing strategies to create healthier, more efficient, and sustainable projects. So welcome, Dr. Languell.
Well, good morning. It is bright and early, and I know that for the most part, we have a lot of stuff to cover. A lot of information to relay and hopefully a lot of ideas to spark out in the audience. And I do want to make sure that you guys are all open to asking questions when and if you have them. We will have panel discussions. And my biggest challenge is trying to narrow down what I'm going to try and relay in a very concise amount of time. And so I was asked to talk about, of course, energy efficiency, but also a bit about water issues and water conservation. And that rings true to my heart simply because, as was mentioned, we did some work with the Discovery Channel, and I can remember going to Greenland and being on the ice sheet, and you don't have power up there. You're in a tent on an ice sheet. But you do need water to live and survive, and you had to go and crack through the ice to get water and carry it back to camp. And so that changed your mindset also about how you used water, because you had to lug it back personally for your use. And when you have to do that, you start even changing the way you eat a meal so that you leave a little piece of bread to the end of the meal so you can wipe off your plate with that bread, so it takes less water to clean that plate. And I'm not saying that we would do that in our everyday life here, but that's just something you do. If you're an avid camper, you probably experience all of this yourselves. But those types of things really ring true and help me think through this whole process of conservation. And so my background, and so you'll get a whole lot of Gator stuff, of course, is material science engineering. I worked at Newport News Shipbuilding and Aircraft Carrier Engineering, and from that I ended up pursuing a master's in construction management and focused in specifically on green building and sustainable development. And left the university in 2001 to do peer consulting, was asked to come to Southwest Florida by a developer at the time, which was the Bonita Bay Group, and they were getting ready to do the first green land development in the state. And so over the years, the past 17 years now that I've been working in the green building arena, we have certified a significant amount of homes, projects with all of the different programs that exist, active on the boards of all of the different organizations, and got to play, like I said, with the Discovery Channel. But I'm also a contractor, so I'm very boots on the ground. I like to get out in the field. I like to go meet people. I like to help, and if I have to crawl around in an attic or under a building, I crawl around in an attic or under a building. It's, that's what they make soap and water for. And so these are just some examples of different projects, and to show on the second row on the left-hand side, those are actually Habitat homes in Dunedin, all the way up to a zero energy home you see in the top middle, which is out on Treasure Island. So there are everything from townhomes that are Habitat all the way up to, in the bottom right here, you see a community that is called Babcock Ranch, that right now they have the approval for about a 75 megawatt PV array. They're going in for approval of a 150 megawatt array, which they're looking to basically create a sustainable town and power this town from solar. And it's currently a cattle ranch and ranch and have meat that is provided locally from the farm as well as the produce. And so they're just looking at a completely different mindset as they develop this town. So you can see again, high-rise buildings, low-rise buildings, mixed use, all of these can be green. And then these are just, shots from playing around with the Discovery Channel. And if you watch Shark Tank, and Kevin O'Leary, who's one of the middle sharks on Shark Tank, he was one of the co-hosts with me, and he is cantankerous as can be. But, traveled the world, learned quite a bit from very different perspectives. So again, a very interesting experience. And so the way I set this up is 2 years ago, we really focused in on this is what you can do as a homeowner. And we will do that, but I wanted to give a little bit larger perspective and then narrow things down. And also, I didn't want to do the same thing I did 2 years ago. And that's just my thing, is I don't ever really do the same thing twice. And I'm happy to give that information, and I know it's available on YouTube, so I really didn't want you to have a rerun, so to speak. And so when we look at energy use in general and in Florida, this is how energy breaks apart. And this is not just electricity, this is energy, so a much bigger picture, where 39% is transportation and 54% goes to buildings. So our biggest energy user in the state of Florida are buildings, some of which are residential, some of which are commercial. A lot of that has to do with our primary industry, because you can see the industrial piece of the pie is only 4%. Our primary industries are pretty much healthcare and hospitality, which are giant energy sucking buildings, hospitals and hotels. And so you see here, that's where the majority of our energy use is. And we're also a big state. We're not Rhode Island. We're not Connecticut. We're not Massachusetts. So it takes us a lot to move things around our state because we are fairly spread out. And traditional fossil fuels have their issues. So we get it from around the globe and it comes to us and it doesn't always make it here. We've experienced this close to home and in the very recent past. And so we talk about green buildings from a perspective of both a noun and a verb. So a green building is this house, this structure that is more environmentally friendly. So it is a noun, but it is also a verb from a standpoint of what did we do to make that house high performance, healthy, energy efficient, water efficient? What are the actions that we took? And so whether we're going to add additional insulation or do some performance testing or protect the ducts or harvest rainwater, those are all the actions that we do to make the homes or buildings more healthy and efficient. And so when I look at houses, we talk about this whole house approach. And I like to think of houses like a body. And so if you think about your body, you have your bones, you have your structure. And that is the structure of your house, the walls, the things holding it all up and together. In your body, you have organs. And those organs basically move everything around. Just like in your house, you have mechanical systems. You have your air conditioning, you have your hot water heater. Those things are your organs for your house. And then you have what I call the trim or the finish. So the makeup, the hair, the clothes, it's on the outside. We all see it. That's what we call eye candy, so to speak. And we have that in a house as well. It's what we see, the walls, the floor. Ooh, I really love that glass tile. Ooh, it's recycled glass tile. That makes it even better. But it's $20 a square foot. Ooh, I don't like it that much. Those three things have to all be functioning in your body. If you have a broken bone, you're not right. If you have a failed liver or a kidney that's not working, you're not right. And if your skin is falling off of your body, someone will probably point out to you that you're not right. So those three things have to work together and be functioning properly for you to be a healthy person. And the same thing goes for your house. If one of those systems is out of place or out of whack, your house is out of whack and it's not going to be healthy and efficient. One of our biggest challenges with existing homes is the fact that we will go in and we will fiddle or tweak with one of these components without thinking about what it possibly could do to the rest of the system. And so that has been historically a challenge. And when we hear things about sick building syndrome, we have an older house that someone has decided we need to make this house leak free. And they go and they seal it up so tight without now introducing fresh air. Well, the fresh air used to come in through cracks and crevices. Not necessarily a controlled way to do it, but a way to do it. And now that we've sealed that up, we're not getting enough air exchange in the house. And so we have to put that into consideration if we're going out there and we're caulking and we're weather stripping, and are we making this house too tight? Because it was originally getting air exchange through leaks. Not that leaks are good, but we have to definitely at least solve that problem so the system stays in balance. And of course, this is the kind of stuff that I see when I go into attics. And I will tell you quite honestly, this is my brother's attic. And so he said, Jen, I need you to look at my attic. And he is not a handy guy. I don't know that I would ask him to hang a picture in my house. So me, my dad, we're always out in the garage, changing the oil, doing all the stuff, fiddling in the garage. My brother, facing a book. That's just my brother. So I need you to fix my house. Okay. So I go upstairs, go up into the attic with him, and this is what I see. And I'm like, Chris, if you want your insulation to work properly, it needs to be evenly distributed throughout your attic. There are some issues with this. And so I'm trying to figure out, well, how, attic insulation doesn't just eject itself from its original home. So I'm trying to figure out how all of this would happen. And of course, I'm starting to see, little bits of debris on the insulation, and I'm, looking around, and it ended up they had a roof repair. And so someone had come in and done some roof repair. And we experienced this when we get the cable guy or the dish guy out there to come and run new cable or put in our satellite TV. They're up in the attic and they're fiddling and they're pushing stuff around. And so you see the insulation, and I would consider that part of the structure. You can see here leaks in the walls, leaks in the windows, or energy transfer, heat transfer. And so again, that's an issue with, quote unquote, the bones of the house. You can see here again infiltration coming in through the outlets, so an issue with the bones of the house, so to speak. Here you can see leaks in air conditioning ducts. And so again, this I would consider an issue with the organs or that part of the mechanical systems of the house. And then this is what I would call the trim, so to speak, the pretty looking stuff. And so this is, again, why do people remodel? Well, they may remodel because there's a structural issue. They may remodel because there's a mechanical issue, or they may remodel just because they got tired of the tropical fish theme, or the very dated bathroom, or the issue with, of course, the mechanical system. So this would be what I would call the skin or the trim or the eye candy, or a lack of eye candy, so to speak. And so this is why we kind of move into this. Why do we improve or try to improve upon our homes? And I'll just very, very quickly go through these things. These are really the emerging trends in green and sustainability and what's going on, and why today we're really going to focus in on energy and water. And so we look at energy, water, building labels. So these are certifications and or labeling associated with green buildings, corporate greening, eco districts, greenhouse gas, net zero, project funding, and durability and products. And so I just want you to be aware of kind of where this industry is going from a standpoint of energy diversity and monitoring. And so the fact that I mentioned fossil fuel, and it's all coming from, a lot of it's coming from the Middle East. From a national security standpoint, we're looking at making sure we have a diverse portfolio in energy. And whether that's plasma or solar or tidal or wind or algae or biomass, any diversity in energy is a positive thing from a national security standpoint. When you look at monitoring and measuring, we have a HERS index, and I will talk about that in a moment. And we have different ways to meter and monitor to make sure, again, we're being efficient. Quick note about smart grid. So smart grid is this concept of decentralized energy production. And so right now we have power plants, they produce power, they send power to all of us. Very convenient, very inexpensive. Compared to what most of the people around the globe pay for power, we have very inexpensive electricity. So smart grid is the idea of we can generate power locally, and whether that's through solar on our homes, or whether it's through other means from a standpoint of someone might be producing power that they've generated out on an axle while driving, and then that gets fed back through a battery into their own home, which is called vehicle to grid. And we've talked about electric vehicles and charging an electric vehicle and then having that vehicle feed power back to the house during peak hours. So that's something that I'm working with quite a bit with Southern Company, which is a large power company in the country. And so from a standpoint of decentralized solutions, the reason I like this as well, number one, this is how we always used to do it. If I lived somewhere and I wanted water, I had a cistern or I had a well. If I lived somewhere and I wanted sewer, you had an outhouse or you had a septic tank. And not to say that those are the most environmentally friendly, but the fact that I didn't have what we'll call transmission losses. And we'll talk quite a bit about leaks today and how much we're wasting with leaks. Well, the reality is the infrastructure of our grid, and whether it's our electric grid or our water and sewer infrastructure, it's been there a long time. And it is aging infrastructure. And it is failing aging infrastructure. And it will take millions and millions and millions of dollars to get it up to speed. And so we, taxpayers, municipalities, don't have a lot of money sitting around to go reinvest in this infrastructure. And so we're trying to get it to last as long as we possibly can. So the least amount of burden we can put on that infrastructure, the longer we can make it last. So if we conserve, we're taxing that infrastructure less. And so keep that in mind, that these grids are way past their useful life. And we are extending that as much as we can. And so this just happened to be, again, Southern Company photo shoot. There's an electric pickup truck up front. You can see the 2-seater Tesla, followed by a Leaf, followed by a Volt, followed by the new 4-seater Tesla. And so we're lucky enough, again, to get to play with these vehicles because they want proof of concept. So they want to know that this is actually a viable option for people in everyday life. Now, the Model S Tesla, the sedan that you see that we get to play with, I can get about 300 miles of range out of it. So everyone who had that range anxiety of I can only go 20 miles or 40 miles, I'm going to run out of power, that's not an issue with the newer vehicles. So you can get larger batteries for extended life. The Chevy Volt, same thing. You can go 40 miles on electric, but it has a gas backup. So that doesn't become an issue. What we found was by using an electric vehicle, I've saved $5,000 a year in gas. Now, I put a lot of miles on my car. So keep that in mind. I'm not your 10 or 12,000 mile a year person. I'm a 20,000 mile a year person. So my gas bill is significant. $5,000 a year savings. Now, does that pay for a $200,000 vehicle? No. But those prices are coming down. So just keep that in mind. We figured out it cost about $1 to $1.50 a night to charge that vehicle. So $30 to $45 a month in fuel cost versus my car is $75 to fill. And I'm filling it sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on what I'm doing that week. So again, a significant savings. So the next step from this is that, okay, I've charged my vehicle and now I need some extra power at my house. How can I take that electricity out of my vehicle? So this is Fort Carson in Colorado. This is actually the first live vehicle to grid system. And these vehicles are actually feeding back to the grid. You can see the amps that they're creating and the volts that they're creating. And so those vehicles were out, they were charged, they did their thing, they've now come back and they're feeding the extra power back into the grid. And so this again is where we're going in the future, decentralized solutions, so to speak. Water, what are our issues with water? As I mentioned early on, I believe more critical than energy. You can live without power, you can't live without water. And you would assume, because we have a lot on the planet, that we have an infinite supply. Well, yes, we do, but it's costly to get. And so we know very little is actually easily available for us. 1% or so is fresh. Great Lakes is where most of it is stocked in our world anyway. And looking at Florida, we get a lot of rainfall. So quite honestly, we get as much as we need from the sky every year. We just don't catch it. And nor would we want to catch it all, because it does need to go water our vegetation, it does need to go recharge our aquifer, it does need to feed our streams, but we do get quite a bit from the sky. And I mentioned hotels and how much water they use. And so we're looking at over 63 million gallons of water per day in that one industry. This is Florida hotels. So that's based off of Tallahassee's count of hotel rooms that are available in the state and the quantity that the hotels are reporting back that they're using daily. So just keep in mind when we're doing all of these things, wonderful things to try and save water, we need to get out there and get the businesses saving this water as well. So again, water resources, we know that the numbers kind of vary between how many gallons per person per day, 76 to 100 are some numbers. That number has gone up to 175. It just depends on whether or not you're including irrigation in that number. So a lot of times you see these numbers and they vary with almost 100 gallons per person per day, and that has to do with whether or not irrigation is included. But the bottom line is we're projecting a 79% increase in demand for water in Florida. And so US average was 100, Florida average is 125, the high being 174. This does include irrigation. And then water needed for just basic cooking, drinking, bathing, and sanitation. If you go bare bones minimum, you need about 13 gallons per day. I mean, bare bones minimum, you need, enough to do enough to drink, quite honestly. If you're camping, you know that. But this is we're living in a home and we want to turn on a faucet and have water come to us under pressure. And so labeling and certifications, you've probably seen some of these logos. That, again, trend, corporate greening. These are companies you may or may not know have been moving in a sustainable direction. These were the top greenest according to Newsweek in 2012. Looking at eco-districts, what we're looking at here is creating, they could either be geographic or invisible boundaries where certain funding is available. So you may have been hearing rumors about PACE programs and funding where you can extend or finance some upgrades on your house over on your tax bill. Those would be things that we would need these eco-districts for. And then looking again at low and medium speed vehicles, autonomous vehicles, how are we planning communities in the future? And this is again renditions from Babcock Ranch where you can see their build out is planning to be with vehicles. So you can see the town center before, but they are planning over the 30-year life of the community to build out the town center with autonomous vehicles. And so they're working to say, okay, we can have these electric autonomous vehicles that move people around communities. And so as sci-fi as that may seem, this is where developers are thinking and planning future towns, so to speak. And so of course we have greenhouse gas emissions that we're concerned with in accounting. That's something that we do, and we do that quite honestly for funding. This is 2 pie charts that have come out of a study that we did for the Army Corps of Engineers. And the reason that I put these in here is because they're the most accurate data we have on this information. And so this is a small commercial building, and what we did was we did the energy analysis of this building. And we said, okay, here's a building we're using, we need something. This is up in the Panhandle. They have an actual heating requirement up there, so that's why you see an 11% piece of the pie. But in this building, we have some lighting, we have heating, we have cooling, we have fans, and we have receptacle loads, which are the plug loads. Inside this building, we have computers, we have printers, we have the stuff that people, humans, use and need. We went through and we threw everything, including the kitchen sink at this building, to make it as efficient as possible. Cost was not an issue in this analysis. We said, let's go up to R50 walls. Let's go up to R100 insulation in the ceiling. Let's go up to the most efficient equipment on the planet that I could buy. I don't care if it's $3 million for this air conditioner. It wasn't realistic financially, but we said, what could we do to try and make this building as efficient as possible? And as you can imagine, you hit a wall. You have diminishing return. You can only make a building so efficient. And once we threw everything at this building, we found out, well, the best that we could do was about a 43% energy reduction. And what happened was that piece of the pie, that green piece of the pie, which we call plug loads, began to dominate the performance of the building. So what that meant to us was, unless I take the people out of the building, I can't make the building more efficient. This is as efficient because those people need computers to do their job. We would need televisions, microwaves, ovens. We would need water heaters for hot water. So unless I take the people out, I can only get so efficient with this building. And so when we talk about zero energy buildings, we talk about getting as efficient as we possibly can, but in order to make this go to zero, you have to have renewable energy. You have to have some sort of power generation that happens. So you can get as efficient as you want, but you're never going to get to zero. The same goes for water. So you will always have some water consumption. Now, where does that water come from is a different story. Does it need to come from municipal water supply, or does it all have to be potable? No, it doesn't. Right now, is that what most of us do? Yes. So just keep in mind that human element. Once we optimize efficiencies, we take over because we want iPads and iPhones and television and cable and hot showers and beautiful landscape, and we want that stuff. So looking at federal funding is out there and out there quite a bit for green projects. So that's good news that our tax dollars are going to support that. But we also want to focus in on durability and passive survivability. And so improving durability of our structures against natural disasters is an important trend. And then realistic green products. And so there was this trend for a long time about using bamboo and cork and the glass tile, which was $20 a square foot, that no one could realistically afford. And so that has now kind of turned more into this pragmatic approach and sense and not just sexy. So, no, we're not going to do solar panels that end up covered in snow if there's not a correct way to get the snow off of those panels. So again, looking at a more practical approach to using some of these more environmentally friendly products. And so popping now into this is my homeowner world, what can I do? And that is, know what a HERS score is. And a HERS score is basically the mile per gallon of your house. And so we know we have a sticker, a mile per gallon. If I tell you I just bought a brand new car and I love it and it gets 8 miles per gallon, can you say that that's a good car or a bad car? Probably a bad car from a perspective of fuel efficiency. We all know mile per gallon. We are comfortable with that terminology. A HERS index is your home energy rating. And so in this scale, the lower the better. The lower you score, the better or more efficient your house is. And code right now, Florida Energy Code right now is an 80 on this scale. So in order to build a house, you have to be an 80 or below. But if you look at where code was in Florida over the past years, you can see in 2004, during the boom, the average efficiency of a house was landing around 111. Code right now is an 80. So almost a 30% energy difference between a boom-built house and what you have to do right now to pass code. Before 1979, there was no energy code in Florida. So that was the first time we actually had an energy code in Florida. The house that I purchased and rehabbed was a 1972 house, and it was, on this scale, it was a 275. So it's now sitting at a 62, and I completed that renovation almost 10 years ago now. So just know that that scale can keep going up, and that's go back in time, go up on the scale. And so when we talk zero energy, we talk zero on this scale. Energy Star is kind of a value that's floating around, call it 60s, maybe low 70s. But again, code right now is 80. And most existing homes, if you know the age of your home, you can pinpoint it on the scale. You can get a rating by doing what's called a blower door test. And there are Class 1 energy raters in the area that can come out and do a blower door test on your house. So they build an energy model of your house in software. They do performance testing to see how leaky the house is and to add that data in, and then they can tell you what this number is. So there's an expense associated with doing that testing. But a lot of times when we do projects, we do this before and after because we want verifiable results. If I'm going to add a better air conditioner or I'm going to caulk or weather strip, I want to make sure that I actually solved the problem. And so doing testing helps us do that. So looking at what goes into this rating, all of these components go into that rating. So we're looking at walls, we're looking at floor, we're looking at roof, we're looking at insulation, windows, all of that goes into that rating. And when you look at the residential energy use, so this is you in your house, and this is a Florida specific number. Heating and cooling, 42%. As you go further north, heating becomes a larger piece of that pie. Down in South Florida, 2% at most is heating. Infiltration is heat and humidity coming in through cracks and crevices. So hot water, 15%, lighting and appliances. This is where our energy goes, so attack the biggest piece of the pie. So your big piece of the pie there is your heating and cooling. The resources that we want to make available to you. There is a green home retrofit guideline. It's not a certification standard. It's not a checklist. You can use this to help you, number one, assess your home, and number two, it gives you a list of things you need to look at. And so it breaks down into energy, water, health, materials, and disaster mitigation. And so you can assess your own home with respect to these components. Now, what the energy assessment looks like You may or may not be comfortable with your energy bill. But if you have your electric bills and you can look at how much you've spent on your electric bill, there's an Excel tool, which is a spreadsheet. If you're not comfortable with computers, these print out in forms and you can do them by hand with a calculator. You put down your electric bill and it will tell you how close you are to the average Florida house. And the average Florida house would be compared to, so to speak, a new construction house. And so if I add in all my electric bills and then compare myself based off of square footage, you can see in the bottom, and bedrooms and bathrooms, it at least tells you how efficient or inefficient your home is. And so this just, City of Tallahassee, we did a research study for them. This is all public information, so that's why these bills are up here. But you can see here, this was a City of Tallahassee electric bill. We were able to pull the kilowatt hours that this person was using each month, look at their rates, look at their fees, and then add, again, using the assessment tool, this was their monthly electric bill. So this person was spending $1,460 a year in electricity. I think probably most of us, I want to say it's about average, but I know because it's a green home that it actually is better than average. And so this was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, so I wanted to compare my $1,400 to what it said down here was the Florida average. And when I compared it to the Florida average, I see that the average was $1,900, so they were actually spending $500 less a year than the average house in Florida of that size. Now, why were they spending less? They were spending less because this was a certified green home. And this builder had gone through and made the house healthy and efficient, and we were analyzing the results of that program. But you could go through and put in your monthly bills and compare yourself here so you know, how am I doing? A relative feel. Am I doing better than average or worse than average? Because if you're doing better than average, don't get all freaked out about going and buying all the new widgets to make your house super efficient, because you may be at that point of diminishing return already. Now, what it gives you, and the reason that I am not going to go into each one of these as a here, go do this to your house, and I know that this is difficult to read and boring to look at because I'm more of a picture person, but this goes through a list of all of the things you can and should do, low cost, low-lying fruit, do-it-yourself stuff, and or handyman inexpensive, not go pay thousands of dollars to hire a contractor. Do-it-yourself stuff. These are the things we want you to attack first. And so it starts from simple, 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 and then gets a bit more comprehensive as you go further down. So you don't necessarily have to start with the spray foam to a minimum of R19, which you see is down at E18, but let's start up top with weather stripping your exterior doors. And so this is a great resource to go to, and because 2 years ago I did give pictures and present each one of these items, I didn't want to repeat last year, so I said, okay, we have this resource, let's make this resource available to you, let's show you the list and how to assess your home. And some people don't like to read, but there are pictures, and there's an entire reference guide available. So it's not just a list. If you want to know more, there is a corresponding reference guide that explains how and why you should do these things and gives you appropriate references. I left this one example in because it seemed to really ring true with a lot of folks, and it was specific to lighting. And this was lighting in my house. And I didn't realize that I was a installed lighting freak until I did this analysis, because I have 61 light bulbs in my house. And again, I just had no idea until I started putting these X's on here, and I was like, oh my God, I have 3 light bulbs in that fixture. I have 3 light bulbs in every fixture. Apparently, I have an issue with the number 3. I just like 3, apparently. And so I went through this analysis, and okay, 61 light bulbs. Now keep in mind, when we're talking about lights being more efficient, we usually talk about the watts that they use, the energy they use. Keep in mind there's also a heat component, and most of the analysis does not take that into consideration. And so you have an incandescent bulb, it heats up. Heating things up in our houses in Florida, bad, because we have to combat that with air conditioning. So again, your LED bulbs and your compact fluorescent bulbs don't have that heat component. And so this study we actually did for the DOE, Department of Energy, and they said, okay, make the assumption that each bulb is on 3 hours a day. So if you know you don't have your lights on that much, modify these numbers. Or if you think, you know what, I come home every day and my kids have left the bulbs on all day while they were at school, modify them accordingly. But this is based off of 3 hours per day. Electricity costs at the time of the study was 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And so in my house, I was using 3,660 total watts associated just with light bulbs. And this was annual, which relates to, again, 10.98 kilowatt hours or 4,000 kilowatt hours per year. So it's costing me $400 a year to have lights in my house. This is for all 61 bulbs in my house. So this is for my house, $400 a year in lighting. If I were to change all of those bulbs over to compact fluorescents, it would reduce my total watts to 915, reduce my kilowatt hours per day to 2.7, reduce my kilowatt hours per year from 4,000 to 1,000, and now I'm only paying $100 a year to light my house. If I wanted to go to LEDs more efficient, fewer watts, fewer kilowatt hours per year, and only $20 per year to light my house. So if I went from incandescent to LED bulbs, I'd be saving $380 per year, or basically the equivalent of 100 gallons of gas, plus or minus. And I turn that into gallons of gas because most people know what a gallon of gas is because we have cars and we fill our tanks. Where a kilowatt hour is harder tangibly to understand. So saving about 104 gallons of gas. So how much would it cost me to retrofit my house? And so to look at retrofitting my house and how much it would cost, of course we have incandescent bulbs, 50 cents. Compact fluorescent bulbs at this point, you can get a 12 pack for $10 at Home Depot or Lowe's. So they're about $1 a bulb or a $61 investment. That $61 investment we saw was going to save me about $300. And again, my first year savings, because my investment was so low, is significant between my electric savings. So about $297, and then over a 10-year period, about $2,900 in savings. And that's assuming I had to buy those light bulbs again because they weren't going to last 10 years. So I had to buy them again at 5 years. Looking at the LEDs, if I went and purchased those bulbs, again, the best we could find in bulk was a bulk purchase of LED bulbs for $6. Now, I've seen them at $45. Again, if you buy them in bulk, you can get decent prices, but a decent price still meant a significant investment, $366 investment. So it looked like after my first year of savings, I only had a $14 savings. And it wasn't because I wasn't saving energy, it was just because I had to spend so much money on buying the light bulbs. So over a 10-year period, $3,400 savings. So again, a bit more savings, but the bottom line was compact fluorescents are pretty good. They give you a really quick return on that investment. And so you don't have to invest that much money to get, again, a significant return. And so that's an example of conservation versus generation. So if I were to change the bulbs out to compact fluorescents, I was saving basically 1,000 kilowatt hours. If I wanted to produce that same amount of power, I would need a 0.62 kilowatt system, 620 watt system of PVs. And so your installation costs will vary depending on who, what, where, when, why you get PV quotes from. But this system was going to cost me $2,700. So I could either go buy $60 of compact fluorescent light bulbs and save 1,000 kilowatt hours, or I could go buy PV systems and generate the same amount of power for $2,700. So conserve first, spend your $60 first, because you're saving as much as you need to generate here. If I wanted to generate the same amount for LEDs, I'd need a much larger system or about a $10,000 investment. So conservation by far is less expensive than generation. So you need to conserve first. Looking again at the difference between conservation, or I guess we could call it efficiency, and renewables. This is 2 big box stores that we had to work with, and one of them, they both wanted to go green. And the names have been changed to protect the actual clients, but they both wanted to go green. The client on the left said, we just want to be efficient. Whatever you want to do is fine. And the bottom line was they had a leaky building. And so we went through and we fixed the leaks, and we were able to save them basically about 75,000 kilowatt hours per year. Client number 2, when they said they wanted to be green, green to them meant photovoltaic panels. They want photovoltaics. And so they wanted to spend $250,000 to get photovoltaic panels, which generated 82,000 kilowatt hours. So one investment was $9,000 in efficiency, $9,000 in data collection to save 75,000 kilowatt hours. The second was 82,000 in generated kilowatt hours, but at the cost of $250,000. So again, looking at making sure we have healthy and efficient buildings first before we generate power is a key component. Some resources I wanted you to know about. There is a web page for the National Renewable Energy Lab, and there is a program called IMBY. And what it lets you do is take a map and place a photovoltaic system anywhere in the country, and it will tell you the payback. So this program is only going to be running for a few more months, because right now it is tied to, and if you see in the bottom left, it's tied to the rebates, it's tied to the tax credits, and it's tied to the incentives. So it pulls all of the data that are available from your local utilities wherever you pinpoint that PV system. And so I went through and I dropped one in a Duke territory, I dropped one in a FPL territory, and you can see the incentives and the rebates change based off of what the utilities are offering. And so you can see here, this was a 4 kilowatt system that showed me a 6.39 year return. This was a 10 kilowatt system in the same area. I dropped these all in St. Pete, right by Vinoy Park. This gave me a 17-year return. And then I took this same 10 kilowatt system and I dropped it up in Connecticut, and you could see it was a 20-year return. So it is adjusting for the different power companies. So again, it's a great resource. You can Google NREL or MB and use that. Another resource you should know about is PV Watt. And what this does is it tells you how much power you're going to produce from your system. And it tells you based off of where you are in the country. And so those 2 resources are great for you, and I just modified those a little bit. And so this is the type of stuff that's all on the program that we showed you, that will make that information available to you. And these are the things that we want you doing to your home. So whether it's weather stripping or programmable thermostats or insulation, all of those are, again, low-cost things for you to do. Water, yes, we talked about how it's an issue and we need to save it. This would be something my husband would do because he's an engineer. So if I complained about hot water, this is what I would wake up to, no doubt in my mind. So this is a national number. So this pie chart is national, where we can see we have outdoor irrigation and we have water use inside the home. And I'll give you the Florida number. So if you see how much we use outside, compared to the national average of about 30%. We use a lot more water outside. So our big savings here, and I know that I don't want to say bread and butter, because it's not that you make money off of educating homeowners about native and Florida-friendly vegetation, but that is one of the main things your extension agents do. So they are genius when it comes to water efficient landscapes. This is where we need to look. And if you start looking at leaks in your house, so a leak can very easily account for 10,000 gallons of water wasted. We can save 5 to 10% of our water bill. because again, we're looking at 10% basically of our water that could be wasted through leaks. 1 trillion gallons annually wasted in the US from leaks. Trillion gallons. So you think about the Southwest and the water wars, and you think about 1 trillion gallons of water, there's a significant opportunity, but a lot of this has to do with our aging infrastructure and those leaks we mentioned. Yes, sir? Is that just potable water? This is potable water, yes, sir. So again, a toilet. So there is a toilet in my house right now that every once in a while I hear this psh, psh, and trust me, it's driving me nuts because I've asked my husband to fix it, and he knows that if I have to fix it, it's going to become an issue. The flapper is loose. The flapper is getting old, so the flapper is leaking a little bit. And the bottom line is usually our toilets have the flapper that gets a little bit old and it's leaking, and we're looking at 100 to 200 gallons of water a day from a leaky flapper. Shower heads, 10 drips per minute could be 500 gallons a year. A faucet dripping once per second, drip, 1,000, drip, 2,000, drip. And that's not a super fast pace, 3,000 gallons of water per year. So those leaks that you know about that you can fix can have significant 5 to 10% savings. The leaks that you don't know about, unfortunately, the main infrastructure leaks that are getting to your home, not necessarily a problem that we can solve. Again, it goes back to that aging infrastructure. The tools that we're going to make available to you also have a water assessment. And so they go through and they will either, if you have a water bill that tells you how many gallons you're using, you can again use that. If you have a water bill or you're not comfortable reading your water bill, or if you're on a well, you can use down at the bottom, it's a calculator that says how many people are in your home, and it has some averages that we have been using to calculate water usage. And so again, in an instance of a water bill, you can fill out your bill and we know your water rates and can calculate how much water you're using on average. And then it also gives you, again, a list of things that you can use. So native drought tolerant vegetation, again, your extension agents are your best resource for this stuff. And so of course we know a family of 4 uses about 9,000 gallons of water a year to flush toilets. We know dual flush toilets and low flow toilets can save 800 to 2,000 gallons of water per toilet per year. And they look just like every other toilet at this point in time. There are gray water systems now that you can collect water and from your sink and use it to your toilet. So these are systems we're starting to see become more popular. These are systems we've seen not take off. Caroma made this toilet. It was a very short-lived toilet on the left from a standpoint of, I guess if you're a man and you're already standing in that position, it's convenient, but for us women, not so convenient. And then the European wash your clothes and use the wastewater to flush your toilets. These did not take off, but there are beautiful ways to collect water and reuse it. These are my cisterns. We're going to wrap up and tape questions at the panel. So cisterns and baby death trap cistern, but the bottom line is you don't have to create hazards when you are collecting rainwater as well. So these are cisterns in a 1902 old DuPont family house that were put back into service when we did a remodel. Rainwater collection, you can get creative or you can be as discreet as you would like, and you can collect as much as you would like as well. And so the cistern on the left is 2,500 gallons. That's actually out on that Treasure Island Zero Energy home, along with the gray water system that you see on the right, which are located inside that house. And then this house is the house of Dr. Anna Marie with the Weather Channel, and you can see all of the simple rain barrels that she has collecting on her house. And so I will just mention that this assessment also has, I mentioned the other categories. There is a health assessment which will help you look at healthy things in your house. Filters, how are you taking care with cleaning products, different things in your garage that might be contaminating inside your house, and it provides you with suggestions as well. Think of all of these things, and these are all contaminants that can impact the indoor air quality of your home. Again, these resources will all be available to you, the presentation as well as the checklist. Selecting materials, we'd like you to select durable materials. So as beautiful as some things are, if it's not going to last, you're ending up throwing it out and replacing it. That's not a good environmentally friendly thing to do. And there's also a durability assessment. And then the one resource I believe I've noted here was to make sure hurricane preparedness. This is something that we all need to do. So from a durability standpoint, a safety standpoint, make sure that you are prepared for hurricanes. These will be, again, available on the PowerPoint, but just quick ideas to save energy, as well as the resources that will have links to and quick ideas to save water. And so that's just kind of your where we end. If you have questions, we will have 2 hours of panel discussion. So by all means, and we're not running anywhere. So we're here, ask us questions, because it's easier for us to direct you specific to your house than try and cover everything up in these quick presentations. So
let's give Dr. Languell a round of applause. Thank you very much.
I'm always looking for ways to improve the energy level of my home. I've done a number of steps already, and I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything else, including the idea of solar, and if there's anything more I can do to stop air from going through my windows, and electricity use, and anything and everything.
I'm always trying to reduce the footprint that I'm putting out and try to conserve energy and make it for a better world to live in.
I was very intrigued by the topic, and I wanted to find out ways that I could save energy in the home for the family and I. Anything that's practical from a homeowner's perspective, like I was glancing at the materials that were handed out, and like wrapping your hot water heater pipes, and anything, little things that we could do to try to save some energy.